At number 30, I have the Detroit Pistons. This this court is all over the place. You've got too much going on, and none of it looks too great. The blue, I don't know, necessarily meshes well with the black outline. And overall, Detroit, their branding has not been on point for a while now, and this is just another case of that. Number 30, solidly. I had a lot of opinions change on some other courts, but this one, in my mind, was always going to be number 30. At number 29, we've got the Detroit Pelicans. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen, but it's very uninspired. You've just got the giant Pelicans logo right in the middle, and you don't really try to do anything cool with it. I think there could have been some opportunities to maybe have some Pelican wings at the end of the day, but no, you just got the middle logo right in the middle of the court. And the Bucks, they did something with the Bucks. They had the antlers, which we'll get to later, and ultimately I wasn't a huge fan of that either, but at the bare minimum, they did try a little bit more than this. This one is very uninspired. Next at 28, we've got the Washington Wizards. At least with this one, you didn't just copy off of your main logo, but I don't like how the shade of red can constantly changes, and I don't think it meshes well with the gray outline either. Not a big fan of this one. At number 27, as I was just talking about a second ago, the Milwaukee Bucks. They did try here. They certainly tried, but I'm not a big fan of the end result. And it's certainly not the worst one, but I don't like the blue either. I think that Nike especially has tried to make blue more than Milwaukee Bucks color, but there's got some other good colors that they could use in their arsenal, like purple. They have a solid color scheme, and blue ultimately is not the best option, in my opinion, for the Milwaukee Bucks. At number 26, we've got the Golden State Warriors. This one just kind of feels a little bit monotonous to me. The gray I don't really like. You've got the Warriors in the center there, Warriors colors at least. And I will say with the centers of these courts, I do like that they have the NBA Cup there. I'd love to see that in the finals too, but we're not getting that. And just the gray W doesn't do a lot for me. At 25, I have the Oklahoma City Thunder. This is similar to the Pelicans in that it's really just the logo in the middle, but I do think that they executed it quite a bit better. I think both shades of blue, they don't mesh the best, but it's certainly not bad. And I think this one was a lot better example of what the Pelicans did. At number 24, I've got the Indiana Pacers. Nothing is particularly offensive here besides the big boom baby slogan right in the middle. Not a big fan of that. Number 23, I've got the Houston Rockets. In general, this one's also pretty inoffensive. I'm just not a big fan of kind of the sprinting lines all across the court there. There's another team later on that just kind of had a red court, but just as a result of not having those lines, it brought them up a little bit. It didn't bring them down as much as it did Houston here. At 22, I've got the Atlanta Hawks. The Hawks are usually pretty on point with their branding. I'm not a big fan of their main jerseys, but the alternates always look pretty good. And they usually have courts to go alongside it, with the City Edition jerseys. And they look pretty good usually. However, this one's a miss for me. I'm not a big fan of the black State Farm Arena logo. I understand why. Obviously, you can't have it with the bright yellow in the background. That's not going to work out. But not a huge fan of how that looks. In general, the colors just don't really mesh for me on this one. At 21, I've got the Brooklyn Nets. This one is also just another very uninspired one. But it's not the worst thing in the world. This is something that we can really kind of be used to seeing from the Brooklyn Nets. And as a result, it's not that bad because otherwise they would just have strayed away from it a long time ago. But very uninspired. One of the most unoriginal ones we've seen. However, it's not as visually bad as some of the other ones we've gotten to. At number 20, I've got the Denver Nuggets. This one is kind of similar to the Atlanta Hawks. I think the execution was a little bit better with the Ball Arena. That logo can be black. That's perfectly fine. It didn't work with State Farm. It works a lot better with Ball Arena, and I think having the red on the outside, it fits a lot better than then trying to fit together the black, yellow, and red. I think Denver did a lot better job. The blue in the middle really contrasts well, and that's a solid logo they've got there in the middle. I don't mind it. In Mile High City, of course, they're going to rep that elevation. At number 19, I've got the Orlando Magic. I originally had this quite a bit lower, but it has grown on me. At the end of the day, it is very quintessential Magic. For better or for worse, you got the stars in the middle. You've got the bright blue colors on the end there. And then, obviously, the big Magic logo in the middle. And it's going to be hit or miss for a lot of people, but I don't think this is one of the worst ones. At number 18, I've got Memphis. This was another one that I had a lot lower originally, but upon a reevaluation, I've got it a little bit higher. They did at least do a little bit of something with the Memphis going across the court. Obviously, they've done that in the past with some city jerseys, and so maybe it's not the most inspired, but it doesn't look too bad. I think it actually translates kind of okay to a court, but the gray mixed with the light blue kind of makes for a monotonous tone. Not a big fan. Number 17, I've got the Sacramento Kings. This one, I've seen it on the court, and it really doesn't. The pattern isn't super noticeable from kind of the angles I saw, and that can be both a good and bad thing. I think it can kind of be distracting. I don't like it in the middle, the way it makes the crown, and then it just kind of goes off of that. Not a huge fan of it, but at the end of the day, the black and gray, that'll always go well together along with the white, and I think the Kings having a purple color scheme to be able to implement that's pretty all right and going to make for a decent situation regardless. Number 16, I've got the Philadelphia 76ers. This is kind of similar to the Magic, and then in the case of having stars, I think Philadelphia did a little bit better though. I like the stars going around the court. And the cursive, I'm a sucker for script, as we will see later with one of my rankings. Can't go wrong with this. Not the biggest fan. I would not go to a Philadelphia game specifically for this, but if I happen to reach an NBA Cup game over there, I would be okay seeing this on the court. At number 15, this is the other red team I was talking about, the Chicago Bulls. It's similar to Houston in that it's just a bright red court with kind of a black outline, but I think the bull in the middle works a lot more, even if it is uninspired. Just got the missing bull right in the middle there. I don't think it's bad, and I think it's a more well-executed version of both the Houston Rockets for the red and the New Orleans Pelicans for just having the giant logo of an animal in the middle. Number 14, I've got the Minnesota Timberwolves. I really wanted to like this one because I like what they did with the trees in the back, but just having a bright green court is not the move, and you've got a good navy blue color. The Timberwolves have a lot of good colors in their palette. I don't think green, especially as a predominant color, is one of those. At number 13, I've got the Miami Heat. This one's just relatively inoffensive. I'm not a big fan of, on the left there and the right baselines, you've got Heat. I don't think the black color meshes that well with the red. But other than that, in terms of the actual court, I do think that the kind of golden color in the middle mixes well with the red on the outside, and it works. It's inoffensive, doesn't do too much, and that can often be a good thing, especially as we've seen with some of these courts. Number 12, I've got the Phoenix Suns. This one, I liked it a lot more in the beginning than I do now. I think a big issue with a lot of these courts is kind of the pattern they've got in the middle. They've got a circle that is like that dominant color, and then it just kind of goes off of that, comes a little bit lighter in the outer edge of the court. I don't really like that pattern of just having the multiple circles. And the Phoenix Suns, it feels really noticeable, but in general, I think there's a lot to like here. I don't mind the orange in itself, and I think the gradient on the bottom is kind of cool. Number 11, I've got the Boston Celtics. I wasn't a huge fan of seeing this in-game, but as a concept in itself, it looks pretty all right. Once again, not a huge fan of having green in the middle, but I do think having it not be this bright neon green like the Timberwolves, I think it turns out a lot better. Number 10, I've got the Knicks. This is kind of similar to the Suns, but I think they did it a little bit better. You don't have the giant PHX going across the middle, and you've got the New York skyline. I think it looks pretty all right. not much to say on this one. I just think it's okay. And moving on to the next one, at number 9, we have the Clippers. I said I was a sucker for script. Here it is. The Los Angeles Clippers. They just got Clippers going across the court. But at the end of the day, they obviously went very minimalistic, very simple compared to some of these other courts, but it looks a lot nicer. I'm a sucker for some script, and I think it looks good going across the court here. Number 8, we've got the Cleveland Cavaliers. I was a lot higher on this one originally. I think what it comes down to is their color scheme works. I'm not a big fan of the nets on both sides, but I think their color scheme with the line and the yellow and the black, I think it works pretty well in most situations, and it kind of gets carried by that a little bit, but at the end of the day, it does have that, so we can't rank it like it doesn't, and I think it works just as a result of that. At number 7, we have the San Antonio Spurs. This one was one that I wasn't very high on until I saw all the others, and then I was like, hey, this one actually comes out being one of the best, and I think it's pretty cool to have the Spurs logo inside of Texas there. I know it's something that they've done previously. I think it does work well on the court, and ultimately there's not a lot to say about this one, but there's not a lot of negative things to say about this one. Now we're moving on to the ones I really like. You can maybe consider San Antonio in that ranks as well. But at number 6, we have the Charlotte Hornets. This was one that I was originally very, very low on, and it jumped about like 20 spots or so up to the number 6 spot. This is something that we see with the Hornets quite often with their honeycomb pattern, and I'm not the huge fan of that, but I think the way that the blues come together and mesh and the white trim, I think it looks pretty good. At number 5, I've got the Dallas Mavericks, another blue one, and they've also done something similar to this in the past, I believe, with some of their city jerseys, where they've got the Dallas skyline, but ultimately it does come out to look pretty good, and both the navy blue and the brighter blue, they come out to contrast well enough to where it's not distracting and an eyesore, but to where it can complement both of them. At number 4, I've got the Los Angeles Lakers, another one that can be kind of similar to what we see typically, and it does look similar to a normal Lakers court for the most part, but at the end of the day, it does look solid, and you've got the purple and gold. That's always a good color scheme. You've got the LA skyline in the back. That looks pretty. Be better if it was Staples, though, Staples Center instead of Crypto.com Arena, but at the end of the day, you also got the championship stars on the bottom. I think it looks pretty good for sure. And we're getting to the top 3 now. We've got the Utah Jazz. I'm not a big fan of the color scheme. The Jazz have so many better colors in their arsenal, especially with the purple and the teal. They could go for that, but they made that rebrand of being more black and yellow and white now, and we see it on the court here. I like the mountains in the back. That really carries this one. I love having the mountains in the back, but this would be so much better with a different color scheme. Even just on the outside of the court, where the black is, to have that be purple or something, it could be so much better. There's so much potential with this one. Ultimately didn't pan out completely. At number 2, I've got the Toronto Raptors. This one is a beauty. Just a callback to the Vince Carter days, a callback to just the retro Raptors with the dinosaur in the middle and the purple. In my opinion, that was such a much better time of branding for the Toronto Raptors, and to just kind of call back to that, even if you don't have that logo in the middle, that would have taken this over the top, really made it number 1. I love the stripes going down. I'm a sucker for stripes, whether it's on jerseys especially. So this one's really nice to see. And at number 1, we have the Portland Trailblazers. Ever since I first saw this one, I knew that this was the best court. I love the roses in the middle, and I've seen some backlash on it, but in my opinion, this one looks beautiful and the best NBA Cup court for sure. That and Toronto are really the things that we should really strive to look forward to in terms of future NBA Cup courts as really model examples for other teams. Those two look great, especially, and notably Portland. They don't have a lot to look forward to. That team's just kind of in a rebuild right now. But if you're going to a game, you're going to want to catch the score. This one is a beauty. And that will be all for today's episode of State of the Association. Thank you for listening. I've been your host, Nash Roberts. This one really has not been my favorite episode because we're just reacting to courts at the end of the day. It's not my favorite thing. I love going into in-depth analysis on stories and stuff, but I just had to get someone out here about the NBA Cup courts, and we achieved that goal. Not my favorite once again, but we're trying to get better each and every time, and maybe next year we'll have an even better ranking of these and really be able to go more thorough into detail about them. Thanks for listening. It's been State of the Association. I'm your host, Nash Roberts.